You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.
Hey, folks, welcome to the Thursday Night Live call-in show. Beans and Dice podcast. Every Thursday night, we take your calls to talk about gaming. I'm your host, Carlos.
I'm Rob.
And special guest today, coming all the way out of Montana, friend of the show, Jeff Irving of Weather Vane Games. Jeff, say hello.
Hello, Carlos and Rob. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for reaching out.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching some of our content and reaching out to say, hey, I'd love to be on the show and be a part of this call-in thing you have going.
Appreciate that.
That's brave. That's very brave.
No, it's a great format, and you make people comfortable. So, that's a win.
That is the plan. Well, what we do for the first half hour, folks, is we talk, kind of give our primer for the evening, different topics that we're going to have, and then from there we'll open up the phone lines at 9:30 Eastern to allow you to take over the show, where you call in, 10 minutes of the show is yours, you're the host, you drive the show, you ask the questions, and that's going to be at 9:30 Eastern. But for now, let's get going with talking to Jeff from Weather Vane Games.
Yeah.
Coming in to talk about Vrahode.
So close.
So
Vrahode.
Yeah.
I added
just
a D.
rolls off the tongue.
I added a D.
Yeah, Vrahode.
So before we get started talking about Vrahode,
Vrahode.
you know how many times I practiced that?
Yeah, and you screwed
You know
it
how
up
many
every
times I
time.
said it
Yeah,
right?
you screwed it up every time.
We're going to start off with the question that we like to ask our guests when they come on the show for the first time.
Okay.
Jeff, are you now or have you ever been a gamer?
Oh, yes. Since about 10. My friend Fat Eric around the corner invited me over to.
I had one of those.
We all had a friend named Fat Eric.
Fat Eric said,
That's good.
"Come over." He said, "Come over. I've got this game." I'd played games, but like what I consider a little bit deeper into the pool games.
Yep.
So I went around the corner, and this kid was really smart. He went to this lab school in the city and stuff, but he brought out this little booklet. It was had yellow card stock on the cover, and it was like stapled, and it said Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't the blue cover one. It was the yellow one. You remember that one?
I did not see that one. The one that I remember was blue because it was
was
before that one.
Blue was first. I think yellow was second.
I've
I
only seen one of those in real life.
Yeah, I played using the yellow one. And that was kind of my introduction to gaming that wasn't just the normal stuff you play with your family, like Life and Sorry and, Scrabble and all that. And so that's kind of where I started and have been ever since. Yeah.
What are you into, like, in modern day gaming now, right? So I feel like everyone's story, except for you, Rob, starts with Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, no, not me.
They can think of a set or a box set or a book.
I don't have the imagination for that stuff.
That's how I got in.
No.
Most people that we bring on the show start with that.
Yeah.
But then they find modern gaming, and I want to know, like, fast forward to today, what modern gaming are you into? Like, really hooks you or you sink your teeth into?
Well, I like things that are kind of oddball. Like I love kind of like ISS Vanguard. I like this idea of this sweeping campaign, science setting. I like what Restoration Games does, where they bring back classics. Because I even love the original Dark Tower, which everyone just cans. One of the worst games ever created, and I even enjoyed it. But my expectation level at that was it was pretty lights and it's fun and it had some digital display on it, and it was really cool. And so what they've done to modernize it and bring it forward, to me that's just cool. I like restoration anyway. I like when you have something that's been around a long time and you either bring it back to like new or you make it better. So I like stuff like that, like they do. Unsettled from Orange Nebula, I kind of like that. Kind of put you in a room with people and makes you kind of like go, we got to figure this out. Let's do it.
Yep.
So kind of oddball stuff. That's on top of the normal adventure gaming. I love dungeon crawls. Anything that references like fantasy story, fantasy art, heroes is pretty firmly up my alley.
I hear you're a pretty big fan of Lord of the Rings. From what I've seen, what I've heard, we've got some regulars on the show who are huge fans of Lord of the Rings. I'm sure we'll hear from them tonight.
If I had a chance to take a role in a play, if let's say they brought Hobbit the musical to the local theater, I would give my wardrobe to be able to play Gandalf in something like that.
Nice.
So yeah,
Always on time.
Yeah.
Never early, never late. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
I like where you're headed with your modern day gaming. Sounds very narrative, but
Yeah.
also very wide open, right? I know some folks who are into the themey games, but aren't willing to jump into like a ISS Vanguard, right? Something that deep mechanically, but then also go into something as light as like Hero Quest type dungeon crawl and add your own narrative. That's the kind of gaming I enjoy is adding my own flavor or narrative to a game. I'm sure this inspired a lot of Vrahode for you.
It really, I think more than anything, no question, unequivocally Hero Quest. Unequivocally. I loved the simplistic, it was just a little simple game that I could literally play with my kids even.
Yeah.
I didn't have to invite Fat Eric over to play it. I could just say, hey, kids, you guys want to play a game of Hero Quest? Yes. The answer was always yes. And so obviously in today's terms, it's panned as being, this gateway game. That's the only value it has. And so I think for Vrahode, the main thing for me was to look at other games I enjoyed, but try to retain a little bit of that pedigree in the gameplay. A little bit of that Hero Quest feeling of just being accessible and easy and fun. So,
well, let's introduce the folks to Vrahode. We've established your game cred.
Okay.
You've got it.
Yeah, you've got some. Yeah.
Now let's talk about where you're headed. Your passion for the last, I don't know what, 4 years now.
I do think it's over 3 years.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm not, as far as the game industry is concerned, I'm an outsider. I'm a complete outsider. I had only designed one game prior to this iteration of Vrahode. And so when I began to go down the road of wanting to become a legitimate and legitimized game designer, the course I personally took was to try to surround myself with industry insiders.
Sure.
To try to help me miss a few of the stumbling blocks that young designers have. And so, I started out with Pangea Marketing, which was Brandon the game dev prior to that. But Pangea Marketing, Andrew Lowen's crew over at Next Level Web.
Deliverance, right?
Yes, Deliverance, which I just got my all in for that.
I'm waiting for Dan to get back from Essen. So I can get my copy.
Yeah.
I got my shirt. Yeah. I want my game.
Did you get the one with the neoprene mat?
I did not. I am not an all-out deluxeifier until I know I love the game. And then I have to pay twice the price for everything because then I want it. Yeah,
well, the neoprene mat for this one is really cool. So kudos to Andrew and his.
I love what he's doing. What his mission and what he's doing has got me hooked. I think it was the first set of shirts he put out. I was in. Like, hey, I'll throw you money. Let's go. I'm going to support you.
You want to talk about timeline? Deliverance is a 7-year project for Andrew.
Wow.
So we're just over 3. So
yeah, you're right. That was years ago when I got that shirt.
First got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long thing. So again, to me, it was about surrounding myself with experts. The first people in the industry that showed me a true kindness was Rick Bach and Marcio Assis from Creative Game Studios. Rick Bach lives in Montana, down in, I think, Bozeman. But they were really welcoming to me and made me feel like I could do it, like I could truly create something of value.
And that's a great feeling because I still think of the people who encouraged me to start what we're doing here, like Rob Oren, right? Folks who pushed me into saying, you know what, Carlos, just do it. Mm-hmm. And that encouragement, those conversations really make me feel reminiscent and good about
validated. Yes. What you want to do. Yeah, I think that's
gotta be a good feeling.
And you never forget them. I'll put it this way: in the acknowledgments in the game, they're the ones I acknowledge.
Nice.
So
I pulled up the website.
yeah.
Vrahode.com. Vrahode.com.
Vrahode.
Vrahode. Like Vrahode.
Vrahode.
Listen, English is not my first language, okay?
We know. Yeah.
I'm going to mess stuff up. Vrahode.com. I've got the website up. Tell the folks at home a little bit about this system that you're creating.
Right. This game system, the reason we're marketing it as a system is because we're inviting you in. We're saying, hey, listen, we've got this basket of rules that we feel is sound and it runs things well. So if you want to play a campaign style game, you can. If you want to do a quest chains, you can. You can basically kind of scale the game to your to how many hours you have to commit to gaming and whether or not you have a large gaming group. The other thing that we try to do with Vrahode is to offer content creators a really robust toolkit. So in other words, when you open these boxes, we want you to immediately start rubbing your hands together because you can see all the things you could do with those materials for your players that you write or that you create. And so we have options that you can post. You'll be able to post your campaigns, your new heroes, your new enemies to our forums. And there'll be two channels. There'll be a black market channel where we just don't approve it for our lore. And then there'll be a channel where we say, hey, this is actually sanctioned material. We like this. Let's add it to our canon.
Fan-made canon.
Yeah, there you go.
I like that.
Yeah, great canon.
Now, I heard you say content creators, but I want to be clear on that. When you're talking about content creators, you're talking about like the dungeon master, the GM of the group, that player that is always got their journal with them, and wherever they are, they're making world building or adventure building.
Right. This game has a channel that is for world builders.
Okay.
And that's why it's a system, not just a campaign.
Yeah, when I heard system for the first time, and then I read some of the headlines, and I saw a cross between an RPG and a board game, I got worried, and that's one of the places Carlos and I diverge heavily. I don't have the imagination. I'm a see it on the table. I'm a heavy Euro board gamer. I like to think through things. If I can't have parameters that are defined, and I can't touch the wall, and I don't want to have to think about, all right, where am I going to go? I want the game to guide me through that. So when I first heard system, a gaming system, and I started looking at this thing, I'll tell you, it threw me a little bit because I was like, oh no, do I have to have an imagination? Do I have to come up with story? Do I have to do all these things?
No, the only thing you're going to miss out on in Vrahode that a content creator might enjoy is the rubbing your hands together, because you're going to look at the box, you're going to go, okay, where's my story? Yeah. They might think a little deeper and say, what stories can I use or create using these pieces, this system? And so that's the only difference.
Okay. I'm on board. Yeah.
So, but it's got, there's like 6 modes of play. There's 4 difficulty levels. So if you prefer a story-driven game where, it's more about being carried along in an interactive novel, we have a place, it's called story mode. And then we have role play mode, which requires you to role play a little bit. And I don't mean role play in the sense of verbally acting things out, but you need to you need to be a little more strategic with your characters. And then we have hardcore gamer mode, which is probably where most, really intense gamers would want to go for an adequate quality experience with challenge. And then we have one that's called gauntlet mode, which, you're just going to set a stopwatch and see how many seconds you live. It's going to be that hard.
Nice.
Gauntlet, like the video game, like the arcade game.
Red Wizard shot some food.
I like it.
Valkyrie needs food badly.
Exactly.
See how long you survive.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I know. Getting a little bit into the so I understand the book, the manual, not the instructions, but the story is quite impressive. Over 500,000-600,000 words.
We're way over 600,000 now. Now, keep in mind, that's not in a single box. That's in 4 boxes. Okay. So I think our core box, between the campaign book, the quest book, the setup and rule guide, and the Vrahode Visitor's Guide, is about 300,000 words and about half of the story arc. And the other 3 expansions make up the other half of the story arc.
Okay.
And so, if you look at the art, and I know we may talk about challenges of design, and I'll say that's one of them is, I love the art. It's simple, it's retro, it feels like 80s art to me, but my marketing teams are not responding to it. So, I was really proud, and this is something that I would say to other game designers. I was really proud of my job as art director because I worked with artists from all around the world, and that was my intent, was to try to bring in a global, cadre of artists for the project. But it's not necessarily being received well, and so I think our next move for the Vrahode game system is maybe to bring in a little bit more seasoned art director. Someone who can maybe update some of the art, suggest some things, because it doesn't matter if I love it, right? It's got to resonate with fans,
right?
So I'm hoping it doesn't require a complete redo of our art, but I know there will be sections of the art that get a bit more polish.
Now, are you looking at changing some of the theming or the kind of? You've got this lizard thing going. It kind of reminds me of what was that? Up, down, left, right, near, far, above, below.
Sleeping
Lockhart?
Gods.
Eckhart. What's his name? Ryan
Lockhart.
Lockhart.
Lockhart. Yeah.
Yeah. The lizard thing. Some of the art kind of reminds me of that style. I think of Blood Bowl. It's a game I love. Playing with lizard men, right? So this is not a type of creature or a genius.
That's
of species
one of many, but yeah,
that is usually highlighted as a hero, as the player character. But I'm noticing your heroes tend to be in that vein.
Yes,
is that going to change? Is that what you're hearing or feeling?
No, that will not change.
That seemed to be a big part of what you're doing, is not treading on
the typical tropes.
Tropes of fantasy that's already established.
Right.
Orcs bad, elves good.
Yeah, there are no humans, elves, dwarves, dragons, demons, any of that stuff in our canon. It's all an attempt to put a fresh spin. We know originality is impossible these days, but we want to try to put a fresh spin on things, and so you're going to be playing things that are just not familiar to you, and you're going to be fighting enemies that aren't familiar either. Because I know you guys remember that first time when you played an RPG or something, the DM said, "Hey, you see a kobold," and you're like, "Cool, what's that? Is it an enemy? Is it a friend? Is it going to hurt me?" That's what we want to do, is give a reset to all of us jaded fantasy fans, so that we get to start over together, and there's no experts,
Yeah, I definitely got a flavor of that with I'm a big fan of the Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, Jaws the Lion, that whole series. And so they obviously did some of that there. They kind of tried to switch up some of those preset conceptions people had about how classes work, how those things work. And so I really have enjoyed that. So hearing that this is a unique twist on that as well, I think is really a good goal. Yeah.
One of the other things we try to do too that's a little different is, in RPGs and things, the game, whatever system you're playing in, it tries to keep you in a lane, on a rail. I'm a cleric. I must be a cleric. I'm cleric. I'm a more powerful cleric.
Yep.
And, in this game, the challenge level is a bit higher to survive. And so what we do is we start, if you want to play a pre-gen hero, something that's like an archetype that's already set up, we're going to give you, 3 pieces of gear, 3 skills, your stats will be preset. All you do is plug in the hero card we've got this little dashboard that all the heroes kind of sit in.
Yeah, I like it. Very cool.
Yeah, it manages all your data points. Like, here's your backpack slot here, and here's your equipped item slot. So, you've got that, and then your card decks are all managed here. Your hero card goes in the middle. And then, all the important data points, like how much armor you have, your movement, and all that is handled in a pretty tiny space. It's relatively concise.
Reminds me of Zombicide Second Edition with the new dashboard.
Yep. It's kind of like Zombicide. It just handles a lot more information.
Yes. And an actual place to put your stuff, like a little tuck box for your backpack.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
what was that? Because Rob was talking about Gloomhaven, talking about the world being different.
Yeah.
How yours is going to be different.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I got off track there. What I was going to say is, instead of keeping our heroes in channels, in Vrahode, we start you out with, gear and skills and preset skills so that you can get that player to the table quickly. But where you take your hero from there is up to you. So you have access to 5 decks of cards: body, mind, spirit, focus, and presence. And so let's say you're starting out as kind of a cleric archetype. Well, your deck that you're going to have access to skills from initially is going to be that spirit deck. It's more selfless. It's more about healing. It's more about things like that. But you can instantly begin to say, okay, I'm going to start working on this body deck. And then you're going to be doing more damage output. Or I can go to the mind deck and try to do some things from distance. And so we really kind of allow you to become more of a Swiss Army knife in our game system. In fact, we encourage it because you're going to need it based on if you have a smaller playing group with less diversity, then you need to branch those skills to provide that diversity in a lower player count. You just got to.
Right. Now, right off the bat, I think I've heard from other interviews. So the way you build the original characters that you start out with, there's a preset kind of guide for it. They have 20 stats that are not 20 stats, but 20 points worth of stats that are preset, and then you have an additional 10 right off the bat that you can kind of customize. Is that still correct?
Yeah. You start with 30,
okay.
which is each skill is set at 6 in body, spirit, mind, focus, presence. And there's 10 discretionary points. So if you're not playing a pre-generated hero, those points are yours. We'll let you, plug them in and advance them however you see fit. And in order to keep the game balanced through the entire 4-box story arc, we do set limits. Like no single stat in the core box is allowed to exceed 15.
Okay.
And 16 in expansion 1, 17 in expansion 2, 18 in expansion 3. So it forces you to kind of try other skills and say, I'm going to advance my mind for a while and see what I can do with that.
It also takes away the issue that you have in the Dungeons and Dragons world, where you get the player that will min-max. They're going to put that lowest number in charisma and that lowest number in wisdom, and they're just going to hike up their intelligence or one stat way too high just to try to really min-max that score. You're going to make them balance it out.
Overpower it. Yeah.
It reminds me of 3rd edition multi-classing of D&D. So kind of being able to...
I didn't jive with 3rd.
You did not?
I played a ton of 2nd. I just played the tar out of
2nd was my intro. 2nd is how I got in.
Yeah.
3.5 is where I lived.
Mm-hmm.
4.0 was kind of the end of my D&D career.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think my personal preference in D&D is like everything else. I love gaming, but I hate rules. So I enjoy things that are more accessible and simpler and straightforward so that I can actually go out and get people to play with me instead of just hoping someone, will play.
Yeah.
So.
And making it accessible. You talked about 6 different levels of or modes of play.
Yeah.
Right. And you say that I see that in a project, I see that in the game, and I get a little shy.
Yep.
Sure.
I tend to shy off because
the game trying to do everything for everybody
Well, I have issues with making decisions. So,
that too.
Like having too many options, I'll sit down at the table and ask myself, well, which version am I going to play tonight?
Yeah.
And then, it's almost like Netflix. I'll spend 2 hours trying to figure out what show to watch. And now it's
Well,
bedtime.
I think you can easily bake down the 6 modes of play in our system to 3. Do you want a campaign game, which is lots of story and lots of time commitment over many months? Or do you like quests? Do you like something to give you a goal? It's finite, and it's what are they curated? And it's curated for you, right? It's a curated bit of gaming. Or do you prefer procedural play where you're basically in the game and it's more sandboxy, where the cards are kind of telling you what's happening minute by minute? My preference is procedural play. And so that's what I tend towards. I mean, story's great and all, but I love to have a satisfying experience when I've only got 30 to 45 minutes to play. And this game delivers on that promise because of the card decks. And
let's give some titles that I think would align game titles that I want to talk about that.
In the core box.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because the first thing I thought it was seventh
What is
continent.
that way? Yeah.
Yeah, Rob got tickled seeing that. That's like seventh continent esque.
I get excited.
What's the one on our shelf?
The Sleeping Gods?
Sleeping Gods
Yeah.
esque, where the cards have the narrative, have the story. Find the card. But I'm with you that procedural style, which I think are you meaning like Hero Quest, where there's a deck of rooms? And I'm sorry, no, let me not say Hero Quest. I'll say Warhammer Quest, which was the one done by Games Workshop, where there's a deck of rooms, and you're going to flip a card, and it's going to tell you what the next room is. You lay that tile down. You flip a card, it tells you what monsters populate. You flip a card, it says what trap triggers.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. So like in the Overlands, when you're traveling in the Overlands, the game feels more kind of adventure-y. And some of the cards that you'll pick from the Overland Exploration deck will be subdivided into the specific biomes. And you're only going to read the text for that biome. If you're in the plains, you're just going to read the plains text. And there's math behind each of those biomes, right? So like if you're going into forest, the risk is higher to go into forest, but the rewards are higher too. And so there's math going on in all of those as you subdivide some of those cards. Some cards from the Overland Exploration deck might just say safe travel, but if there's 50 instances of safe travel, they're not all just going to say safe travel. They're going to have story text that says you see a thunderhead stormward from you, but you feel confident that you're going to reach your destination before it threatens.
Okay.
And the next card will say something completely different, like you find a spire, a crystal spire, and da 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 da. And so we spent the time to get down into that and make cards that would otherwise just be generic be a bit more immersive.
Right.
Without adding
Forbidden Waters, you flip the tile, calm waters. Okay, calm waters. You flip the tile,
Yep.
calm waters.
Yeah.
Hey, more calm waters.
Yeah.
No, it's each one's going to have a story. When it comes to the game and deciding between the campaign and the procedural, right? You talked about thousands and thousands of words already written. So we're talking books. Right? So
About 8 or 9 novels, American novels worth of writing has been done by Sean Allen Dressler and his partner Alexandra.
How is that incorporated into those? Because you said 6 different modes of play, but really you can chop it up into 2 styles and then 3 from each of those on how you do, right? Procedural or campaign style.
Right.
Where does that novel sit? When is it going to be used at its best, maximized? Because that's a lot of work put into it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money that's going to go as a
Big chunk of the
investment
game.
of the game is going to be getting that. And if I'm a procedural guy, will I get access to it? Will I use that? How does that integrate?
Remind me to come back on the whole cost issue and having to pay for things you're not going to use, because that's important. But you've got a 8.5 by 11 campaign book in the core box, okay, and it's well over 1.5 inches thick. So a lot of the narrative is going to reside in our story. We feel like, because I came up with the story of the world and story arc back in 1990. It's kind of been distilling over these 30 or so years. Gosh, I'm old.
Listen, my wife saw a meme the other day, and it said it was He-Man. Anyways, it said the 80s will soon be 50 years. In 8 years, the 80s will be 50 years old. And I'm like,
I'm there.
I feel old.
I'm there. Yeah, right there.
So you wrote this in the 90s, which will be 40 years old soon.
Yeah. What was I was going to say about
I go on tangents. I go on tangents.
All over the place.
You were sharing how in the 90s you were writing it. It's been distilling for 30 years, the story. And I want to know how I'm going to be able to use it when I play the game.
Yeah, so we talked about the campaign book being 1.5 inches thick. Well, the quest book, okay, is going to cover all those middle levels of quests, from expeditions, which are 7 to 12 quests long in chain, to missions, which are only 3 to 7 quests long, down to skirmishes, which are single region quests with multiple waves of enemies, down to ancient orders, which are a completely different subplot that's based more on the biomes that you're traveling through, down to within procedural play. There are even quests there that replace the curated content from the campaign and the expedition's missions all the way down. And those are called commissions. And so you stroll into a town, into a village in Vrahode, and none of the people in your party are of that race. And they say, hey, welcome. We're glad you're here. We need you to do some commissions for us to help the villagers. And once you finish a tier, we're going to allow you to visit the hotel and inn and the merchant, and we'll also give you a specific racial blessing, but not until you finish that first tier. And so there's the replacement of meaningful hero advancement if you're not questing or campaigning. And you can't do both. But if you want to do commissions, you can come over from questing. But when you do, you won't be getting the advancements. You'll get a cool item or something. So there's an alternate piece of treasure for you that still makes it
scaled.
Right, that's scaled. It makes it worth doing, but it doesn't let you double advance because we've really worked hard to keep the game balanced through the whole 4-box series.
Right, because there's that style of Gloomhaven style, which Robert is all over. He's finished the first one, plus the expansion.
Oh yeah,
right, and you're already halfway through or a quarter of the way through
into
Frosthaven.
Yeah.
But that style, which is that slow, methodical progression that my ADD brain just cannot follow.
Nor mine.
I can't do it. It's too slow.
Yeah.
I love Gloomhaven. What I don't love about Gloomhaven is that there are times when depending on my hero build, I can't do anything on my turn.
Right.
I'm like, I can't do anything. So our game plays.
And the progression is what? Like you add a card that and that replaces another card that maybe does something a little bit different than that last card did. Like the Starburst has a 6 instead of a 5.
Some of them are radically different, but
No,
some of them are after 150 hours, you'll get a cool card.
Oh no!
Like I can't do that.
No, we just leveled up 2 characters last night. They were salivating over their choices. But go ahead.
I would say Rob would find Vrahode much faster.
Sure.
I think that he would, as a general rule, find the advancement more consequential for his hero.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we're fine with Vrahode not having, we don't care about tactical depth, nor do we care as much about realism in every case, because we want, like, for example, there's no rules in the system about attacks of opportunity or breakaway attacks, or having to harvest arrows or, and make arrows. We kind of assume a lot and try to take away a lot of the minutia. You can do backstabbing and things like that in our system, but you have to learn the skills to do it. But it's not written into the system. So it tends to play very fast. Our goal is that it plays very fast and fun.
Well, let me touch first on phone lines are open, folks. 813-618-7099. If you want to talk to Jeff, Rob, or myself about Vrahode, which is the name of the world.
You got
so
it.
it's like saying Earth.
You said it right.
It takes a little bit. Yeah, it takes a little bit. It's the name of the world. So it's almost like saying Earth. It's not a city. It's not a capital. It's the world, Vrahode.
The world you're in.
Jeff is sharing that with us. But like we say every week, if you want to take over the show for 10 minutes and talk about what you want to talk about, you can do that. We were just talking about Gloomhaven, do some comparison in there. Before I move on that a little farther, I wanted to talk about what you shared there with the decision space, the tactical space. By removing things, I think you're making it better. Yes, attack of opportunities are great when I pull out of a combat, like step out of melee range. But is it worth the extra time that it takes away from other players being able to play the game? Right, like adding that extra rule, is it worth it? It sounds like you're asking yourself that.
Well, we had hundreds of opportunities when developing the system to say, do we err on the side of realism here and tactical depth, or do we err on the side of fun, fast, consequential? And I mean, a couple of rules that we really, really had in there for a long time and we struggled to make them fun was height advantage. Stuff. I mean, it's just like we played it and it's like we wanted it to work so bad. It just didn't add to fun.
You're talking high ground with actual elevation of the
ground. Yeah. We got a lot of maps where there's like an elevated outcropping here. Right. See,
yep.
If I'm up here in this,
I get +1 to my shooting, right?
Of course.
Well, no, what we ended up doing is saying if you're in a square that has a yellow dot in it, you're in what's considered difficult terrain, and your defenses go down because you're more worried about looking at your feet than your enemies. And so that was a much more fun and accessible way to kind of affect
and different
types of ground.
Yeah.
And back to where I was headed with the Gloomhaven analogy was that slow plotting, slow growth is Robert's style. My style is more Massive Darkness.
Yeah, Massive Darkness is just that.
Massive Darkness 2.
Yeah.
You got 1 hour adventure, and you started off as a nobody, but by the time you ended it, you got a backpack full of magical items, and you're like a superhero.
Nope.
In an hour.
Nope.
Oh no, you're right. It's almost like a Diablo board game.
Yes, like Diablo the board game.
It's very much a gear grind. I love what they did with the asymmetry, really forcing the asymmetry in the heroes that they didn't do in 1. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
But it sounds like you can get a little bit of both in this system. I can set it up as a one-shot, one night with the kids. Let's grind, let's have fun, let's power up. But for those that want that longer-term commitment, slower burn, it's available.
You can definitely get that.
Now, how would I use the books in my, probably not as much, right? For the one shots, the one night, one shot event.
What's cool about that? So let's say you're doing a small quest chain. It's got 3 quests in it. You've got 1 quest under your belt. You just finished it. The next one starts about 5 regions away. So 5 county-sized chunks of land away, right? You're going to just you're just going to start drawing from the cards. The cards are going to fill in that gap. It's like when you're a DM, and you plan for A, B, and C for your heroes, and they always do Q.
Yeah.
This answers the Q. It really fills in those gaps when it's not curated or when you're moving between curated areas of story. And it's supposed to feel seamless. Does it always achieve that? The fans are going to tell us, but we're trying really hard to make those cards fit into the world and the kind of lingo and things. And so it does. It kind of builds those bridges between the curated content for you.
You talked about being very conscious of the backers' investment in the game, some of the cost issues that come along with it. What do you want to share with the folks about how you're doing that?
Well, in addition to, the comments I made about art, and my love of retro art isn't necessarily what a modern board game customer is looking for. And so we're looking at maybe adding an art director. We're going to take our time to release this product. We're not going to rush it to market. And so that may be happening. So a little bit more polish, a little bit more continuity. But on the cost side, I've been through 3 cost-cutting rounds personally because it's my baby. So I felt like, let me try before anyone else tries to begin to eliminate excessive costs, redundancies. And at the end of the day, I was able to cut 1/3 of the cost out of the core box because it's huge, but it wasn't enough. And so the catalyst for Vrahode was the Harbinger 3D terrain system. That was kind of what led me to do this version of the game. I really wanted to contribute something new to the board game space, and I wanted to do an affordable 3D terrain system. But it ended up that it became such an expensive component of the game series. All the marketing teams said, hey, listen, you've got this board game series over here. Nobody knows your story. It's an indie studio. It's brand new. Why don't you lead with this 3D terrain system that's agnostic? That's a 1-inch grid. It'll plug into any game system.
And there will be people who buy into just right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people are telling me now, let's lead with Harbinger and let's entice people into the Vrahode game system using Harbinger. And so we took 4 products, which was a core box and 3 expansions, and turned it into 8. So we have 4 Harbinger sets and now 4 games. And so therein lies the rub. It's like, how do we best market this? Because trying to market a game series and trying to market a series of 3D terrain sets, it's really hard. It's just a muddy mess. So it's like, well, do we lead with Harbinger or should we lead with Vrahode? So that's kind of where we are in the process right now, is that messy, we just have this, we basically have a product line here. You know what I mean? We don't have a game. We don't even have a series of game. We've got all these things going on. And so it's about really trying to define, where do you start? What's the most potent message that I can bring gamers? Starting to look like Harbinger might actually be it.
Wow.
The terrain setup.
Yeah, because here it is. This is a real simple, it's just a simple series of room and hall tiles, right?
And I saw some pegs that elevate.
Right. We can build really stable, dynamic looking 5-level deep dungeons right on your tabletop with it. It's far less expensive than most comparable systems. All the pieces hooked together with a universal key. And it's kind of fun. They're fun and quick to build and take apart. And so that's the Harbinger. And so that's kind of, who knows? I mean, I have to listen to my teams, My desire was to release Vrahode first. And then we started talking about maybe a dual launch. Now it's starting to look like, maybe Harbinger is the way to go.
How are you getting the word out? As someone who's indie, first time getting out there, I know you reached out to us, and this product is in line with, as you're learning, with
our taste.
Our
Yeah.
taste, like
Yeah.
it's kind of in that vein. But how are you getting that word out? Where are you spending your energy?
Well, like I said earlier, I've tried to grab marketing teams and budget them into what I'm doing, have them help me with my socials. I engage a lot with the fans. I stay in the tavern all the time. I'm in the Vrahode tavern with the fans all the time. We have a Discord. I get on there. I do a Discord chat with them if anyone has questions or wants to get on with me on Saturdays. So we're pretty active in socials. We have a Reddit, of course, our Instagram is active, and people love our Instagram because we show a lot of artwork. So that, and the other thing I think that we've done that is not traditional at all is we've been going to cons and getting booths with no product. We've just been bringing the game, setting up demos, running it, getting butts and seats, and seeing what they think. And they've helped us make the game better. And most of the people that play our game are now future backers. They really, really enjoy the gameplay.
Nice.
That's a lot of energy. I know Rob and I have worked cons.
Oh, yeah.
For other companies. Rob has demoed games. We've
we've sold stuff.
Sold games. It's a lot. It's tiring. When going to a con and working a con is completely different.
I know you've been on that con circuit. So what has that been like for the last, I don't know how many months that you've been all over the place?
I'm a big ham. I mean, I like to be out in front and talking with people. I would rather play a game with you guys than demo it for you. I'd rather be in the action and play it. But I don't mind demoing. I have to say, we started out at, Genghis Con. We started out at Genghis Con, which was Aurora or Denver. And it was a small con, fun con put on by Gamer Girl. And we felt like a pretty decent sized fish in a fairly small pond, and we had a great experience. So then we went to Kubla Con in San Fran, little bit bigger con. I really loved what they have there. It's very family oriented. They even have a room for kids, which I think is really kind of cool to try to find a way to include kids in a convention in their own unique way. And then we did Origins with our partners, Ravenwood Woodworks. That was a blast. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot of fun. And then Gen Con was the last one we did, and we were in the first exposure playtest hall. We weren't able to get a booth, which I know a lot of people struggle to get a booth. And it was a mixed bag for us. we like I said, we didn't have a booth, so we couldn't really dictate when our demos, how long they were, when they started. We had to be on a schedule. And for a bigger game like ours, we need a pretty good chunk of time to teach people how to play and get them into the action.
Yeah.
And by the time the designers on the table got their stuff out of the way, we set up and had butts and seats. We had just a little over an hour to do a demo. And that's hard.
Yeah.
So it was still fun. And I loved being in the room with all these new designers that, they're
The high energy. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all super excited about their game, and it was fun.
Nice.
For someone who's trying to get into design or publishing, we've had a few folks that have been a part of this. What's something that you wouldn't do again in trying to get your name out there, things that didn't pan out?
Well, the common wisdom, I think, from all seasoned designers is this: start small. Develop a simple game around a simple mechanic. Start it out with pieces of notebook paper. Don't worry about it being fancy, and don't do a big game. I went the completely opposite way because I had this story in my head and I wanted to find a game. I wanted to develop a game that did justice to the story and the world in my mind. And so I ended up overachieving, I think, on the amount of content that we've created here. But I'm really happy with the amount of playtesting we did. That's the one thing I would tell you, new designers, to playtest way more than you think you should. Not your friends either. Not your friends. Blind playtests are way more valuable. That'll tell you whether your rules are accessible. That'll tell you if people get frustrated, if they get bored quickly. And I mean, I just explained to you guys my art. There's another issue. Look at what I'm dealing with. I spent a lot of money, a lot of time and effort contacting and building relationships with artists from around the world, only to find out that my product doesn't look intentionally retro. Yeah. That's kind of takes the wind out of your sails a little bit, right? So I would say if you're going to do a game and you want to take it to market, be ready to spend your money. Be ready to hire people that are better at doing art than you are. Be realistic. I'm the kind of guy that I've learned, and I've been told this too by other designers: don't let people's opinions change your game. But if a lot of people tell you the same thing, you got to start listening. But because you're going to have someone come along that just does not like dice, and they're going to tell you, oh, you need to do this. If you go run around trying to make every change that somebody suggests, you're just going to be insane and never have a product. So I would say one of the things I learned to do in this process with the teams I've been lucky enough to work with is wait for the consensus, but then listen. Be honest with myself. I'm not that great of an art director. Did I love it?
I'm not sure about this art issue. Like I look at Gloomhaven and I don't see stunning art. Gloomhaven to me is not.
I agree. Yeah.
You agree?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Art's not
muddled, dark. Yeah. I don't know. Like we've been talking a lot about art on the show lately, the podcast and the call-in show. Our callers have been
the AI art.
Yes, our callers have been very interested in this AI art world. Last week, Chris Graffiti of Fervent Workshop called in, and we chatted a little bit about that, and he was chatting with his people that he deals with in production. Yeah. And the idea or the concept that he brought up was most games are never played more than 10 times. Why do we put this much energy into the art? Right? The art should be disposable if the product's not going to be used more than 10 times. Why put so much energy and money and time into art?
I would disagree with that, only on the front that it may only be played 10 times per owner, but games go through a lot of hands, and that's one of the wonderful things about board games. They get repurposed and reused by new families all the time, and that's part of the neat thing of it. I'm of a mindset that I will not use AI art in any project I work on, but I will not pass judgment on others that decide to do so. Like I talked to Jamie Jolly, the guy that owns Shadowborn Games. And we differ a little bit on our opinion about AI art. I won't use it. I think he's receptive to using it. I'm not sure that he has, but I think he, like many designers, understand that the margins and the ability to make money in this industry is so narrow and so challenging. And these products are so much a group art project that I can see how compelling it would be. I just know that I went to school as an artist, as a fine artist and graphic designer, and I just can't turn my back on people that are trying to make a living doing that. I just can't.
And that's kind of been the line that we've noticed with our viewers and our callers. Speaking of callers, it is a call-in show.
Absolutely.
Thursday nights. Yep. 813-618-7099 is the number. I know we're having a great conversation. Please don't be afraid to interrupt, ask some questions, or change the topic for a little bit. Yep. It's entirely up to you. But our group of callers have tended to, it's been determined based on where they came from. We got some photography folks, we got some art folks, and they're drawing that hard line. And then we have some folks that aren't anywhere near that world or have an artistic bone in their body.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're like, I don't care. Just give me a game.
Yep.
Like I don't care what's in it.
Save some cost. Yeah. Use the AI. Yeah.
I think that's the key. I think you have to be able to, if you don't like it, if you disagree with it, don't use it in your products. Spend the extra money, hire a real artist, employ people. But if not, if you want to try to arrive at a product and have a little bit of potential to make money, that may be the future of where you have to go. And it's sad, but it may happen. And I say I'll never do it. Well, I don't see myself ever doing it, but who knows? If there's no way to make a game without doing it at some point, then more of us will.
Yep. I wanted to touch on, and I wrote this one down, combat, right? So there's the luck-based or dice-based combat versus more control, more outcome.
Deterministic.
Yeah, deterministic combat. Robert and I are on two opposite ends.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. Throw the dice out the window.
Where did you land, and how did you get there?
I think every warrior, every magic user, every cleric, whatever, let's say you're in a fantasy battle, there's a certain amount of luck. I don't care what level you are. There is a certain amount of luck as to how that battle will go. I think that you, through deduction, through math, should be able to equip the correct gear, to use the correct item, to have selected the right skills, to mitigate most luck from that. So I don't think eliminating luck is even, it doesn't, eliminating luck completely in a battlefield, there's no place in that for me. To me, there has to be chaos. I mean, that's chaos. Luck is chaos, right? It equates to chaos. What is battle? It's controlled chaos. Yeah. So the way we do it is you have a skill range that you have to roll within on things that reach out and touch. If I'm going to try to reach out and hit Rob with my weapon, I have to roll within a success range. I can improve that success range. I could choose to use a skill that doesn't require that success roll, or I could use a racial ability that doesn't require me to hit you with that success roll, doesn't require me to use up magic, but I get to use it simply because I'm of that race. If you're not my race, you can't access my skill. So we try to give you this way to say, if you're not a luck player, fine. Don't try to use things that require you to specifically hit something. Use something that's got a little bit more of a splash to it. You know what I mean? Or it targets a space, not your armpit. Right, so I would say to you that I land somewhere in the middle of you two.
Okay.
How did you execute it in Vrahode? How did you what are the mechanisms you're using for combat?
Well, we have an initiative system in ours for the order that people go. And during your turn, you can move, equip an item, unequip an item, and then you have the choice to do one of three things. You can either do a physical attack, or you can use a racial ability, or you can spend magic, we call that rule in Vrahode, and do a skill. Some skills require you to hit them because you're summoning a mystical whip. Well, you still got to hit them with the whip, right? Some of them are Right. Some of them are more about hitting a space. Some are a cone. But you're rolling a D20. Okay. And in our system, lower is better. 1 is a critical strike. 20 is always a miss. Right. And then if you have
targeting engaged, says Chester Wilson.
Yeah.
armpit targeting engaged. Absolutely. But the other thing,
T-shirt.
yeah. The other thing we do is if you have a weapon, a physical weapon, which of course you have to roll to hit with it, right?
Yep.
And it says its base damage is 4. That weapon will never do 4 damage in our system because in addition to that D20 you're rolling and hoping for a low roll within your skill range with the weapon, you're also going to modify that because one of the things that we found in playtesting is that it kind of got boring when everybody's weapon, when they were hitting, was doing the damage that the weapon did. But there's good and bad hits in every battle. And so let's say you have a flail with a base damage of 4. That modifier dice can modify that mace's damage down to 1 or up to 7. So each attack is different. You'll have some attacks that are way more successful. The cool thing about that is it makes certain types of heroes a little bit more interesting. I love what it does for ranged attackers because arrows are base 3. They're only base 3, right? It's an arrow. But if you get that good hit with that arrow, you get that good roll with your modifier die, it'll do 6.
So it's kind of like knowing what the mean is for the damage on this item, but it could vary depending on that shot, and then that's where the narrative. Well, for myself, that's where the narrative would come in, right? The fly touched your nose and you missed your shot by a hair.
But that's the thing it does when you do that. When you take away the ability to predict certain things, but you have a lot of control to mess with the math, the chances of it, then it makes the battles more fun because you can get off that good shot with that bow that you never thought you were going to make. And it happens a lot more frequently in Vrahode than it happens even in HeroQuest because they don't have that mechanic. So I think the modifier die is a big deal for us. One of the mechanisms people love in our game is the threat die system. If Rob is traveling by himself and he's entering a new region, he's not threatening that region much. He's not very stinky and he's not very noisy. But when Carlos comes along, you're double stinky. Yeah. And so for every hero you add to play, you're increasing the threat of those heroes against the inhabitants, the poor creatures that live in places. And people really like it because it's a gambling system. You can place the die in different spots. You can place it on a face down card. If that's an enemy, now it's 2. You can leave it on the table. But if any enemies are revealed, then all of them have behaviors, which make them. So, you've got this kind of dichotomy. You've got 2 choices and anybody can place the dice. Doesn't matter who's placing them. And so, it's like if this person places it and it's a bad outcome, then everybody, gives them crap for that, and so it makes battles kind of going into battles like the setup for them kind of more stressful. And people love it. When I do demos of that at cons, that's the thing that they're like, oh, that's amazing. They're like, I love the threat die system. Yeah.
Cool. I want to know about your demos because I was thinking about how you described it, how, the different ways you've done it when you've had a booth, you've not had a booth, and the limitations to it. But at the end of the day, I'm not going in and getting a demo of Azul, right? So it's not like it's a quick light game. Let me show you the quick rules. Let you play a few rounds. This is a very expansive, large project that you're working on. How do you get an hour of my time and a demo? Like I commit an hour to you. How are you walking your customer, your potential backer through that demo? What are you focusing on? What does that look like from the business side of it? Like you planning that demo out. What are you sharing?
Okay, so I'm sitting down and I ideally have almost 2 hours of time with them. Most of the time everybody makes it through. Sometimes someone will get busy and have to go because that's kind of a long demo. But the first thing I'm going to do is when you sit down at that table, all those hero dashboards, they're all going to be populated. The hero card's going to be in there. Your skills are going to be picked out. Your stats are set up. Your movement, your armor, your fatigue level, your skills. There's going to be dice in here. All these crystals are filling up this. Your backpack's going to be full of your equipped items, so you know what your armor is. So this is done for you. You sit down at the table. We say, okay, take a look at what we're doing. This is a light adventure / dungeon crawl game. And anybody have any questions? Okay, well, this card in front of you says what you can do on your turn. And it quickly just says you can move, use an item, and you can do one of these 3 things. And I explained to them, you can only do one of these 3: physical attack, racial ability, or skill. So let's go ahead and let's just get going. And I'm going to explain things to you as we go along. Then I read a story hook. And the story hook says you've been in this tavern, and the guy that set up a little story. Let them travel a couple regions, say everything's safe, then say, okay, here's how things work. And so then you make them pay the fatigue to enter a new region, because we want to start introducing them to some concepts just a little bit at a time. And we say, okay, so every hero in play is going to get an overland exploration card to put face down next to their dashboards. Don't look at them yet. Now we have to roll the threat dice. We're going to roll the threat dice. Okay, what do these mean? Where can we place them? Who can place them? Okay, how does that work? Then we're going to go into initiative and say, okay, this is about order. Here's how you cheat the system. And then you go into battle, and you just, you got to keep moving. But again, this system is not a heavy lift. It's way lighter than Gloomhaven. I mean, if
you're touching in on some of the narrative aspect, some of the character building.
I was wondering how much story we're going to get, how much world we're going to get.
The world traveling piece, you touched in on that.
Okay.
Then you hit them with some threat, and then maybe combat.
Yes, definitely combat, and we try. We don't always get there, but we try to get to rest mode, because rest mode is the other thing that people love. It's the threat die system and the rest mode, because the rest mode is designed to help you recharge your magic, to reduce your fatigue, and to heal wounds. But it goes south because there are ambushes and there are thieves. And so I think the important thing to remember in Vrahode is that's easy to forget, is the challenge level. It is on many levels a survival game, because the game only allows you to have 10 items in your inventory. The math benefits of those 10 items are very finite.
Sure.
So if you carry a rope, well, you're probably not going to lose items as you traverse rivers, because you can lash down your gear. But the world can take away your items. If you're in a river, there's a chance an item might wash out of your pack, right? If things are in your equip slot, they're safe because they're on your person. You're wearing them. And so there's 3 kind of enemies in the world. There's flesh and blood enemies. There's the world itself, which we talked about. But then there's also your inventory. That's an enemy in a sense, because if you don't manage the math correctly of what's in that little dashboard, you will die. Not just might, you will die.
Which is that's a part of most fantasy adventure games that tends to be ignored.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it seems unique to me. I haven't heard
like
a whole
in
lot of that.
D&D, you got encumbrance, and if you really wanted to, you got to take your strength and then modify that by a number, and then that tells you how many pounds you're allowed to carry, and then it modifies your speed. And
you don't have to know any of that. This just does it. This tells you, that stuff.
I can't think of any board games that really touched on that, other than you have a left hand and a right hand,
right?
Slot.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
And then everything in your backpack goes there. So I like that you're at least touching on it, but the consequential impacts for not managing your inventory right, because you won't have what you need to survive a test. What does death mean? What does death mean to me?
Yeah, death to you or anybody else means something different based on the way you want to play our game. If you like the chance of real, imminent, factual final death, we have play modes for that. We have hardcore gamer mode. And if you are playing Kaltiran, which is a prophesied hero, the most pivotal in the story, and they die, guess what? You have to start the campaign over. If you play Gauntlet mode, anyone's death is final. And so role-playing mode is much kinder. You have what's called forced rest. You're not allowed to help your friends. And then when the battle is over, you're not able to get any of the loot from the battle. And then when you enter rest mode, you enter with everything depleted. So it requires that your comrades protect you over a longer period of time while you recover. So there are penalties.
Good.
So rest is a lot of fun.
Where are you headed next? Like, you've shared a lot about the game. We've talked about the world, a lot of the decision space and the mechanisms that you landed on because of those decisions. What's the plan for Weather Vane Games for Jeff?
Yeah.
I love this, and I love doing game design. I love what I do. I'm very blessed. I hope that I get to release the game and that I get to release the Harbinger system. I hope those get to come from me, from Weather Vane Games. It may not work that way because it is such a big project. I may have to sell the IP to somebody and allow them to do it, just because they simply have the mechanism by which to do it at a better price than I could do it. Because as a new company, working with factories, it's tough. And one of the things that we're hearing now, obviously we had the shipping crisis during COVID and all that stuff, but a lot of things we're hearing now is about the hourly rate of the factories in China. The cost of the paper is 50 to 60% higher if the claims are to be believed. And so ultimately, my goal is to have the world get Vrahode and be able to play it. My hope is that I'm the one that gets to do that. But again, you know what I mean? This is such a big thing, and I try to be humble. I try to listen, and maybe I won't get to do it. But I hope that the game gets made. I'll put it that way. I sure hope
one way or another, it gets out there.
There's so much world that you've built there. Even and I know Gloomhaven has their Jaws of the Lion, and Gloomhaven has their, what's the new one? The Buttons?
Frosthaven? Oh yeah, the little mini one that's coming out. Yeah,
Buttons and Bugs. Yeah. Very cool.
There you go. Yep.
Maybe not something as expansive, but how do you create an intro level product that maybe introduces the world, runs through a campaign or an adventure, a set number, to kind of get the world out there, get your baby born.
You guys are asking all the hard questions. No. I'll tell you what happened is back a while ago, I got approached through Dina Said So Studios, who's one of our marketing teams in Finland. And she's very good friends with lots of very established industry types like James Naylor Games and Mob Vanguard, who is a localization specialist. They're the ones that will take your game into European markets and say, hey, we have interest from Spain to make Vrahode in a Spanish version, right? And they bring you the contract, they make a big cut, and you produce it in Spanish. And Michael saw the production cost of our game. Oh. He said, oh, Jeff, he said, you have to give me a $20 game. And production cost, landed cost, I should say.
Right.
And we were at 3 times that. And so obviously, he needs to make his multiplier. He needs to make X number of times that to make it lucrative for him. Yep. So I will tell you guys this. Vrahode did not start as a $20 game. I fear it will never be a $20 game. However, under someone else's tutelage and guidance, it might be, but probably not mine, because there's a certain amount of storytelling breadth and number of enemies and creatures and things that I have a big attachment to. Yeah. I may not be able to make all the cuts necessary to arrive at that $20 product, sadly.
It's hard to admit that. It is. It
is. It's hard to admit. But I'm growing.
Yeah. I was going to ask because I'd seen an interview before where I don't know if I know you're going through a lot of changes and a lot of thought right now, but we're talking about 12 different character classes. We were talking about 100 plus individually sculpted minis. Lots of plastic in this game. There was obviously the 3D terrain system.
Yeah.
My first thought when I started hearing all that, it was like, how much is it going to cost? I mean, what is the what?
Listen, you bought Gloomhaven twice.
Oh well, all right.
You're not afraid to drop a couple
A little
hundo.
bit.
I will tell you what the goal was initially, and it's definitely different now and probably better and more attractive now than it was when we started. When we started, we wanted 169 for the core box. That's when Harbinger was included. Okay, it had a Harbinger set built into the core box, in addition to over 100 minis and these big, thick books, and you know what I mean? The expansions were going to probably be somewhere in the 60s because they had lots of minis, big, thick books, and Harbinger sets in them as well. But once you divorce those two and you say, okay, now you've still got a lot of minis and you got these books, but the Harbinger's over there. And it becomes an optional buy, for someone that does, I don't want to build Legos. You know what I mean? I want to play on the table. I want to play. So I think we're on the right track. You know what I mean? I think our all in and the Kickstarter was coming in at $319. That was the core box and all 3 expansions with Harbinger included.
Okay.
So now
That's in line with a lot of modern day all-ins.
It's not crazy these days. Yeah.
Right. So now I think what will happen is the all-in, if you want Harbinger 2, will be more expensive, but the cheapest way to buy Harbinger will be with Vrahode. So we're trying to incentivize Harbinger buyers to play Vrahode by giving them a couple unique mini sculpts, a couple cards, and a mini campaign in the Harbinger set. So like if you've got the core box, you can buy the orange set and it plugs into the core box. If you've got expansion 1, you can buy the red set and it plugs into that. If you've got expansion 2, you can buy the purple set and it plugs in. And with each of those, you're going to get a few mini sculpts and a mini campaign. So that way, if you say, hell with Vrahode, I'm going to take this Harbinger and play D&D with it, you're still going to get enough stuff that you can read through and look at it makes you go,
maybe I'll get the core box.
Maybe someday I'll try Vrahode. Maybe someday I'll try it. So that's what my preference is on marketing it. But as I'm told, that's not very smart. It's too much product.
Right. Too many options. Too many SKUs.
Too many SKUs.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to be humble and learn from my teams and listen. And, if the art's not good enough, we'll just keep at it.
Where are you going to be next? Where's the next? If someone wanted to demo
if they want to come
this
find you.
and
Come
see it in person, where's that going to be?
Yeah, come see us at booth 816 at BGG Con in Dallas.
Okay.
I think I've got Cosmic Ben coming up for a day. He'll be playing some demos and hanging out with us. So if anybody knows who Cosmic Ben is, he's a guy that does interviews with people like me, and he's a really nice guy. You guys should. If you don't know Ben, he's pretty cool. Ben Wagner.
I'm gonna look him up.
Look that one up. Yeah.
His YouTube channel is Team Cosmic, and his name is Ben Wagner. Okay. He's a little bitty channel, but he's a really nice guy. You guys should have him on because he's fun.
Cool.
And booth, you said you're going to be at BGG Con. Booth.
Yeah, I think we're 816, and I think Ravenwood, our partner.
Okay.
Ravenwood, our partner, is in the next booth, 818.
Okay.
I'm looking for the floor plan. I don't want to waste your time. I don't see it.
No, we're good.
BGG Con, that is closer to
twice a year now.
Yeah. Oh, is it twice a year now?
Well, they're doing two different events.
Yeah, there's different ones. This one is the fall or early winter one in Dallas, and I think it's November 15th through I'm going to bring it up for you just because I feel like that would be helpful.
Yeah. We haven't made it to one yet. I mean, one of these days we got to get out there.
BGG Con. Okay, it's November 15th through the 19th.
15th to the 19th. Okay.
In Dallas. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. I'm going to be running version 3 of the game, which is the latest card decks, the latest encounter maps, maybe a little Harbinger for fun, but it'll be mostly overland stuff. Just having a good time, still learning, still trying to keep moving the ball forward.
What's crazy is I just got back from historical miniature gaming convention in Orlando.
Huracan, yeah.
Huracan. They do twice a year, Recon and Huracan. and I see every year I'll see the same folks have a table, and because you sign up to run events at these historical miniature gaming cons, very different than board game cons.
Yeah.
This is very much more event driven. Folks come in, they sign up for a table, they don't pay for it. Right? You sign up to volunteer to run and teach games, and there are folks like you who I've seen. These are the same people I've seen, Rob, like 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
That I've seen
year after year after year.
who are still coming year after year to run their game.
Yep.
This is their game that they made, their dungeon or their Mogadishu layout, right? Because it could be like a Somalia thing.
Yeah.
Right? That they every year they're adding new models, they're painting new terrain, they're
Well,
adding new scenarios, and they're just running it over and over each year with twist for folks, and they come back every year because people love being a part of that, and I can definitely see like this the tie-in with you. My hope is that you can launch it, right? But it doesn't sound like you'll have a problem with, you know what? I'm just going to share it with people who want to be a part of it. Pick a place, grab a table, have people sign up, and just kind of set them on the adventure.
Just run it, yeah.
And just and like that is a big part of the what I can hear. Your passion is just watching someone enjoy it.
Oh yeah, one of the things a friend of mine, Randy Price, came to one of the cons and he said, you know what, this game, the speed of this game, the way it plays, this thing is perfectly designed for league play. This is a league play game. And so I got really excited about what that could mean and trying, because I'm a researcher. I like to research and kind of, get down into the weeds on stuff to try to give myself some comfort with a topic when I don't know anything about it, especially because I'm new to the board game space. Is anytime I hear a new concept or someone give me a wrinkle, I write it down in a notebook, and then when I get done at the con, I'm like, all right, what does this mean? What's a league play?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I think it would be a fun. It doesn't have any PvP aspect to it. We don't have any PvP in it yet. It could, but
no, you would lose Rob. He is It's either co-op or competitive. He does not want a multiplayer.
I can't. I hate beating up on my friends unless it's like Axis and Allies or something. Then I can.
Yeah.
Like Nemesis, right?
The semi-co-op.
Yeah, semi-co-op. Where there's a winner. We either all lose together or one of us wins.
Yeah.
Or two could win or three could win, but I don't like that.
No, not at all.
No.
Yeah, that's cool though. Kudos to people that do.
Listen, I'm not yucking anyone's yum.
Yeah.
Except for Gloomhaven.
No.
Yeah, well.
Gloomhaven's great.
I think Gloomhaven is an easy target because it's so big and so popular, and there's so many opinions about it. I think Isaac did a great job. I think he tried to do something different. I think he landed on the RPG side of things a little heavier than my taste. For my taste, and I guess my concern is always this: who can I play a game with? And there's no value to a game. It's nothing but cardboard and plastic if it's on a shelf. If it's a game that makes it to the table most frequently and it's accessible to more gamers, those are always my preference. I don't even care if it's a tableau game or something like that. If you get it to the table and people enjoy it, that's the value. If it's so flippin' huge and so technical and people look at it and go, oh, heck no. There's no value, to me.
You got to find the right group. Yeah.
And that's where I hear about, Vrahode, and I'm like, I feel it's so large. It gives me a perception of this is going to be complex. Right?
Yep.
Like you think large, you think system.
Sure, yeah.
You think, 18,000 words. I can't remember what the number was.
500,000.
It was a large number.
Yeah.
Over 600,000.
600,000. Yeah, there you go.
And I'm like, complex.
No, nope. When
that's that message that you gotta get out there.
Well, just imagine if what I joke with people about pedigree wise, and this is where you guys have said I constantly compare with other games, and I'm not claiming to have a game that's as good as any of these. I'm telling you what we've kind of strived for in development of Vrahode is that Gloomhaven has a baby with HeroQuest in an art gallery, but the child was then subsequently raised by Uncle Shadows of Brimstone.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's about what we are. We that's the weight. Shadows of Brimstone is fast and fun.
Trash, good times.
Ameritrash, and you've got the fun and the nice solid combat of Hero Quest. But then you've got richness and lore and world that Gloomhaven brings, but we don't slow the play down quite that much. We try to keep things a little bit.
The part of Gloomhaven, like I like the story of Gloomhaven, but the play is so slow, you lose me.
That lost him, yeah.
So that's where, when we first heard about you, having you on the show was very interesting to me, because it sounds like you're headed into a direction of what I would like to see. I want some narrative, I want some story, but I also want it to also occasionally be episodic, because there are going to be days when it's not going to be my core group and it's just going to be some friends. So I want to be able to just throw an episode down.
Keep it moving along.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hitting all those notes.
Yep.
Yep.
That's great to hear.
Like you guys, I'm a dad. I've got 3 daughters. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to do was have a game that was just gratuitously violent or had, huge breasted, scantily clad women. That's just not. That's not the look. That's not the feel we're going for. There's a purity. There's a kind of a childlike majesty that we all have for things we've never done before, like this wonder. Like when you first play a game, you first play fantasy and stuff. And that's what we're really trying to deliver, is something that kind of feels like that nostalgic, but it takes away all the tropes. It takes away all the familiar so that there's no experts at the table, right?
It really does level the playing field.
Something I definitely like about the Gloomhaven Frosthaven thing. I know we keep coming back to that. I've got a lot of hours into that, so that's just what I know. But that's one of the things that definitely attracts me to that, is that you don't know what to expect in a lot of things, and you don't know how that story's going to go, because they take a lot of twists and they do a lot of things that aren't just that standard trope. So
I never thought about that, Robert. Like when you and I, let's say it was a D&D series that we got into. Right, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's a kobold." I'm like, "Oh, I know, I've fought hundreds of those." And you would be like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, you don't know what a kobold is?"
Yep.
But that Gloomhaven really did level the playing field for you and I when we played it together.
Yeah,
and
because we were both exploring it.
Not only their races, but their classes as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, big time.
It's like you could really come up with some combinations that were, even satisfied the min-maxers, but they did a good job of creating balance there, I think. No, I think Gloomhaven is an easy target, but it's amazing what Isaac did with his team. So, and I'm not sure how much Isaac did with Frosthaven, or if other designers stepped in and retooled that or not. You guys know? Isaac Childress?
To some extent, I know he had a lot of the scenarios designed by fans and by.
But that was in the second set. That was Frosthaven.
That was Frosthaven.
Yeah, because Gloomhaven, I think, was all him, right?
Yeah, I think it was
his. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right, that's what he's asking. When they went to Frosthaven, how much of that was still just Isaac, or how much was other people? And in Frosthaven, it definitely opened up. He definitely opened it to the fan base. They did some tweaking to the rules. They streamlined some things. He went back.
I had my picture taken with him. I'm kind of a fanboy.
You're a fanboy like Rob.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm a big fanboy, but so he definitely, and he admitted that he changed some things that he was in love with, some things that were his baby, some rules things even that he thought should go one way, but he listened to the fans when they redid it. Now, Frosthaven is a different story. If you played Frosthaven, it is harder, it is more in depth, it is a bigger thing than Gloomhaven, and we're finding that pretty quickly, me and my game group, but you can see where they definitely have listened to the fans. They've made some changes to the system. Some of the rules now just make more sense. It's just, oh, okay, well, why did they complicate that in Gloomhaven? That's the way it should have been all along. So
yeah, and I'm sure it's both ways. I mean, there's things that people aren't going to like in Frosthaven they liked, and
sure, yeah,
to each his own, each to his or her own, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's the tough part. I know that name has come up a lot tonight. But I don't think you're going to be able to shake that. I think what you're trying to do is so near what Gloomhaven has done that it's always going to be something that comes up whenever you bring up your game.
Yeah, the scale of that world and all of that, I think. Yeah.
We've got a higher word count, I believe, than any other game
nice
now made.
So you got to make it now, like just to be able to.
It's got to be a thing.
It's got even if you got to go Kinko's and print it yourself.
But I also think that we don't have a lot of really big, complex minis. they kind of feel more like 80s, 90s minis where the figures were more in a kind of a repose. They weren't in this action flying position.
I'm okay with that.
But I think our mini count is higher than any other series now too. I think we have more minis and a higher word count. I can't swear to you that that's true, but based on my research, I know some of the bigger ones like Oathsworn, Midara. Midara is the big one. We're bigger than both of them.
Okay. What I got to ask, so something I've been thinking about all night, and you may not know the answer straight out, but so we're talking this huge book, lots of words, campaign. So if full campaign, any idea what are we looking at as far as number of hours? I know it's hundreds of hours. I'm imagining.
I would say so, just because there's three kind of types of campaigns in my estimation, and you guys can disagree with me on this, and probably will. You've got like a rail campaign, right?
Sure.
It's a rail. You're on a rail. You've got a branching campaign, which is a bit more like Oathsworn. They have, although it does tend to bring you back to the track. So, but it does branch, right? It does branch more. And then you have a little bit more of an open world campaign, almost a Skyrim-y feel where you can kind of do the main story or you can go do the side plots. Okay. What our system is, and this is where I haven't played enough Gloomhaven to know how their campaign, which of those types it is. For us, we go from rail to total sandbox to branching and then back. So we kind of mix the three together. There's times when, like, you guys just finished part of the campaign, you finished a quest in the mountains here, and you know that you have to take this piece over there 14 regions to give it to the regent so that he can, that whole period is completely freeform. What happens to you is dictated by those cards only.
Okay.
Once you get there, we'll pick you back up. And then for a while, we'll let you branch and say, okay, you can go this way, or this way. And so I find it a little more satisfying.
Sure.
Because I like the idea that there's a rule basket in those cards that almost makes the curated content feel a little more special. You know what I mean? Because you're not doing all curated. To me, once you do a lot of curated stuff and you just feel like you're being led around by the nose eventually, almost like playing D&D.
Right.
And that's not what we wanted. We wanted to have I don't know what to call it, more just an open feel. I guess sandbox is about the closest you can say to that.
Yeah, but with direction, because you throw me in a sandbox and I'll be lost.
You'll be there for days.
I've never finished Red Dead Redemption because I just sat on a rock shooting vultures. Yeah, because I kind of forgot what I was doing. Like, why was I here?
But isn't that the mark of a good game that just draws you in and takes you?
Just lose yourself in it. Yeah.
But then I'm going to need a rail to kind of show up and say, hey,
let's move things along here. we got a purpose here.
Yeah.
I like the balance of that.
I think what helps with Vrahode is when we let you go away from the curated content and it gets free form, guess what? Because you're playing in that more curated style, we're not going to give you any meaningful hero advancements till you get back on it. So you can go and get cool items and have fun and do other stuff, but you're going to start thinking, I need to get another skill here. I need to learn another skill. So that's kind of how we pull you back onto the rail or onto the branch, if you will.
Okay. So it's some asymmetry, some divergence from the main story, pick up some meaningful things, but not game breaking.
No.
You want those, get back into the curated, follow the campaign story.
Yeah. And because ours is not a gear grind. Ours is it's not a loot heavy game. It's not item heavy. The power of items and skills even is kind of compressed because it's important that we give you meaningful advancements without it becoming Diablo, where you're just, plowing through the world. And so I think this idea of saying, if I'm painting with you two, and we're getting these meaningful advancements. We're learning more skills. Our max life has gone up. More rule, I got a stat bump, things like that are happening for us. And occasionally we'll fight something that drops good loot, one piece, and you may need it. So what I may have to do, if I want to get better items and gear, I may have to go sandbox for a while to get my gear, then come back and work on my meaningful advancements with you two again. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So it can kind of serve a different purpose for your hero, because it's not like Diablo where monsters are just belching out mountains of gear. So it works for us. We like limiting things. We like that the world is a challenge, that you can't just carry 40 items. But that's Vrahode.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I know we've been on for over an hour and a half now.
Yeah.
Not a single call. People are listening.
Yeah.
And we see the viewer count, so people are popping in and watching. We get a lot of folks who come in and watch afterwards. They'll listen to the podcast. They'll want to know more about it.
I want to hear from somebody. I hope somebody please call in, because I would love a zinger question, anything, even if it's not about Vrahode. I would love for somebody to call. That'd be great.
I do agree. I love my call-in show, and I shared with you before we started the show, we tend to see a very big drop in calls whenever we have a guest, because we have good conversation. But you folks at home, don't be afraid to interrupt.
No.
Jump in and ask some questions. Jeff's here, Rob's here, I'm here. Wayne's playing Axis and Allies at home today with his brother.
For sure.
Dan is over in Essen.
Yeah.
So we're looking at pictures from Dan in the Discord. That's kind of what we've got going on this week. News-wise, we always like to touch on the news before we end the show. I got some news articles that I had up, but Jeff and I were chatting before the show, the pre-show. Jeff touched on a recent email from Mythic Games.
Oh, the Mythic topic.
How's that going?
I don't know how many of you have decided to back Darkest Dungeon, the board game. And for those of you that have or have backed other projects by Mythic or know who Mythic is, which almost everybody does.
Sure.
They're going through some challenges, to say the least. And I did the all-in because I love Darkest Dungeon, the PC version. I love this idea of heroes as meat sacks, or you're just waiting to die. And so I did the all-in. And I got my wave 1, and I received an email today from them about contributions. And I will be receiving 2 emails tomorrow. One will tell me what to do, one will lead me to where I find out how much more I have to pay now to get wave 2. And I am not talking about a little bit of money here, folks. I'm talking about big money.
Oof.
And I was like, and I'm going to do it. I'm paying it because I'm a completionist. I can be mad at them, but by golly, I signed up for the all-in. I'm going to get it, and I'll take my lumps. Might not buy another game from them, although I am signed up to back Anasteer, I guess.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen got this email if you're back in Darkest Dungeon, but wow.
No, we're not. But I've been following a lot of these Mythic issues on the content creator side.
Yeah.
Folks talking about it.
A lot of talk out there.
We've got a couple of folks in our regulars in our Discord that are sharing their gripes. But you dropped that tidbit of a new email today. Things aren't getting better. It's not moving forward.
I mean, I had my doubts when they sold all their IPs except for Anasteer, Darkest Dungeon, and what was the Team 6, I think was the other one they kept. Does that sound right? Team 6 or
Sounds
Delta
right,
6?
I think. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think they sold down to three IPs. So I think they sold off Solomon Kane. Do you know if they sold off that one?
I haven't heard.
Solomon Kane. Anyway, when they did that, I'm like, holy cow. I mean, they're scraping to stay afloat here.
Yep.
I don't know. I feel. I mean, I feel bad for the fans, but I do feel bad for them too.
Yeah, because you see both sides.
Yep.
You can see the producer side and then the consumer side.
Yeah, I just hope. I
I've
hope
never
if
been a Kickstarter person. I was always
Yeah, neither one of us.
I'm
Yeah.
risk adverse.
Yeah, me too.
We both do insurance for a living.
Exactly.
So we're very risk adverse.
I got to know I like a game before I go in on it. So yeah, that whole pay now and wait it out and see.
So like
which,
Massive
yeah.
Darkness, I bought the base box when it came out in retail, and then I had to hunt everything down at like 3 times the price because I loved it. So I'll risk that.
I'm doing the same thing with Cthulhu Death May Die. I'm going to have to buy some of the parts aftermarket because I didn't do the all in.
No. Yeah, that hurts.
Beans and Ice Podcast. State your name. Where are you calling from?
Kenneth from Temple Terrace, Florida.
Hello, Kenneth from Temple Terrace. How you doing, homie?
Oh, man. Thank you for a great conversation tonight.
I'm glad you
Thank
enjoyed
you,
it.
Jeff.
Oh yeah.
I don't get to catch the podcast often, but I really just needed to hear some wonderful gaming stuff.
Yeah.
And, Jeff speaks some of my language.
Good. You speak Vrahode.
I learned on Battle Risk, which elevated to BattleTech and D&D, basic D&D.
Oh yeah.
And actually, I've got some questions for Jeff if he doesn't mind.
That's what we're here for.
Go at it.
Heck yeah.
So Vrahode, if I'm saying that right.
Vrahode?
Vrahode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough to say. Is there a site where we can get some more information about this, or?
Sure. Yeah. Vrahode.com.
Because I haven't heard.
Yeah. Vrahode.com. It's VRAHODE.com. That's our website. But we're all over socials. We're at Vrahode on Instagram. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a group page called the Vrahode Tavern. That's a lot of fun. People rib me in there and help me make things better. And then we have a Discord. If you'd like to get on Discord, we have a tabletop simulator on Steam. If you'd like to get on and play with me, I can show you how to play the game on Tabletop Simulator. And what I do with that most of the time is I just take appointments. If someone has a time available, they want to play, all they do is just reach out to me, and I usually have the time because this is all I do. So
Nice.
I'll play with you. Yeah. So yeah.
That's awesome. And because actually you I really like the novel concept of something where you can be, just like a one shot, hero quest, kind of just jump into it, or something that goes on a little bit longer.
Oh yeah.
Over the course of many nights.
Yep. I think COVID kind of steered a lot of people away from campaign games and more towards solo games without requiring a GM or DM. So we knew our story was too robust to not do campaign, but we definitely didn't want to make it all we were offering.
And actually, you touched on it a little bit earlier, and actually a couple things. One, art. I have heard in a couple other areas that art sells your game. And so if the art isn't registering, it will turn off a lot of potential people.
Yeah. And I thought I was a decent art director, and I'm here to tell you I'm not good enough. I don't have the chops. And so if I need to hire an art director that can, I think the main thing we need is more cohesion in our art, hopefully not a complete redo. But I'm going to enlist some help. I'm going to make sure it's polished.
I mean, what I saw during the podcast looked pretty interesting. I didn't have any direct complaints about it.
Right. I was a little shocked too when Jeff shared that about the feedback he got, because as I was flipping through the website when I first heard of it a couple of weeks ago when Rob introduced me to Vrahode. I was like, okay, this is nice. This is decent. This is, at least on level or better than Gloomhaven.
Yeah, well, people are gonna have obviously different opinions on that. I mean, we watch Dice Tower, and they'll bring up some art of a game, and Tom and Z and the caster, they'll have very different opinions. I mean, everybody's got their own idea, and so I guess some of the feedback Jeff's gotten is that it may not be in the majority, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not good art. I mean,
now cohesion, I can understand that being an issue.
Sure.
So like Kenneth, I know is a big fan of Terraforming Mars. Right, and we can all agree.
Oh, I love that thing.
Regular Terraforming Mars, there's no cohesion.
Clip art and here and
Well,
there.
Yeah. That's an acquired.
The lack of cohesion is the cohesion.
There you go. That actually makes it a thing.
The only thing that you can count on is not counting on cohesion.
Exactly.
I think for me, what the teams were telling me is that it didn't. I had to convince them, one, that I wanted a retro style, but the thing they telling me is it doesn't look intentionally retro, and I didn't know how to take that, and I still don't. I'm not.
What does that even mean?
What does that mean? What is it? Yeah.
You keep using these words, Jeff, and I don't know what they mean.
Well, when I hear intentionally retro, to me, I start thinking about dated fonts. Like, am I supposed to do everything in Comic Sans?
No,
to make this thing look retro?
Yeah.
So I just don't know, and I think that's where an art director has the chops to really distinguish how to dial that in and say, okay, if this is going to be retro, you got to get rid of this. And this has got to look more like, and maybe I just don't have that. I don't have that skill.
Kenneth is a big fan of Battletech as well. I've seen him at our local game shop. He's got a crew of fellows that he plays with there. And Battletech has that kind of retro look to it still, even with the new boxes that come out. I can't help but think, to the first time I ever saw it on the table, it's not like they're trying to. I don't know. This whole intentionally retro would make it feel like over the top. I don't know.
It's big, blocky, stompy robots.
Yep.
I mean, that's
and the
thing.
The weapons and the lasers always are like, it's looked like you're getting ready to watch an episode of the A-Team or Knight Rider. It's got that just
flash and smoke and
yeah.
I love it.
I don't know if they're intentional about it, but
Actually, they are.
It's still very intentional to try to keep it retro.
They are updating the art, bringing it more towards, more current standards and ideas. But it's still, come on, they're walking tanks.
Yeah. Robot jocks, baby.
Exactly, man.
That's the movie that's all I think of. That's what got me into the idea of Battletech, was having seen Robot Jocks.
It's awesome. And actually, I was kind of, as you're one of the things that maybe just a suggestion to Jeff.
Okay.
Something that that I have been hearing a lot of is people are willing to take a bite-sized chunk, like Jaws of the Lion.
Yeah.
It's been a huge success.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can take a separate piece or a toned-down piece of what you're doing and offer it that way as a gateway.
Kenneth, let me ask you this. I mean, this is a big world. And the most logical way to cut out a piece of it is to do just a dungeon crawl, because we draw from a whole separate set of card decks that work in a dungeon. When you go to the Overlands, it kind of blows up. Would you be interested in buying something that's bite-sized but never lets you see the Overlands at all? Would you say, hey, I want to try this crawl, and if I like it, I may do something more? Would that entice you, you think?
Actually, I would want something just a smidge more.
Okay, more than that.
I'm thinking I would actually love a taste of, like, be it a one-shot adventure, a set of adventures over maybe one or two overlands.
Like the regions, you call them county-sized regions.
Yeah, where you actually do the travel to these, just a few narrative-related events.
Okay.
So you're selling like a short story. Maybe as you were saying, like an expedition size.
Yeah, and
that may even get you under that $20 price point.
What we could do with that would be we would have to limit the number of enemy types that you encounter.
Yeah,
that's okay.
We would have to limit the number of encounter maps that you could explore. Like this is a plains map.
Sure.
This is a mountainside.
They're double-sided, right? These are double-sided.
These are all double-sided. That's a coastal region. If we did limit both the number of encounter of region types and enemy types, we would have to retool and do decks for that specifically. That would cut down the cost. I think we could pull it off. It would be a little harder to pull off overland and dungeon together. Then it's going to start getting a little pricier. But I'm open to anything. I really am. When you look at the materials online, I think you'll have more ideas even. So
I'm because actually this is the first time I've heard about your product, and it sounds awesome.
Great.
But also, I've got so many games in my collection. I am now becoming very, very selective.
Sure.
About what I purchase.
Yep.
And definitely something like try before you buy is becoming really an idea.
Yeah.
Or a low cost entry point, because I've seen that successfully done in a lot of historical things, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, for that, the starter kits and starter sets. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And that may also be a route to get you going, because the biggest thing that I'm hearing is one of your problems is getting to this big, massive concept and narrative stories, and marketing it to people so that they're not feeling overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like Rob was talking about, what a great job, and you mentioned it as well, is what a great job Gloomhaven has done in trying to give people that entry level and different approaches, not just Jaws of the Lion, but this new Buttons and Bugs is a different way to kind of get into it. So I think you're right. I think there's definitely something to that.
And even something along the lines of like, I think the original Hero Quest, when we bought it, was $40.
Yep.
Yeah, but milk was like $1 a gallon back then.
Yeah, back in the day.
Gas was $69.
But I'm just saying, but the base core game, it gave you plenty of adventures, and then they started getting into the expansion packs and a whole system. And then it came back 30 years later.
Yeah.
Well, that tells you something right there. I think that tells you they had something that worked. You know what I mean? And they released basically all the same content over again, maybe with a little bit of an art refresh.
And new content is coming out now. Like I'm still buying new minis just because I like their minis. So like that system works. But I see Kenneth, I see what you're talking about, because there's that Kickstarter buyer that wants all of that in that one discounted package, because they feel justified in making that $350 purchase because of the amount of content. And then you've got myself, which I'm not a Kickstarter person. I'm more of the drip buyer. I want the IV drip. I want here's your core box. In a month, here's an expansion. I'm buying it. And in a month, here's another mini. I'm buying it.
If you like it, yeah.
So over a 2-year period, I'll buy everything that you sold to that Kickstarter person in that one shot, but I'm paying probably twice the price over a 2-year period because the completionist in me wants it.
That's interesting because I think you're probably in a minority when it comes to that type of buying. I think you got I'll just buy the core box, and then those people normally, that's it, or they're doing all. But to do it and to have to go and find those bits and pieces in the secondary market, that would be
or if it's good, it'll re-release. I'll wait 4 or 5 years. I'll wait for them to re-release it. They'll give me a big box. It'll all be back in there or something. So yeah, I agree. He's probably in the minority on that one.
I am the minority.
You are the minority of the group. Yeah.
Well,
Kenneth, go ahead. Wrap up the call. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is I'm a deluxe buyer. I love to go all in on the Kickstarters too, but like I said, I'm still looking for a try to buy. So that is an important aspect, I think, in you're looking for your marketing.
Well, I hope
these ideas help.
I think it's very helpful. Yeah, I think it's definitely something we're trying to wrap our head around right now, and that's why I gave all the marketing teams a week off. I want everybody to come back with ideas. I want everybody to come back and be ready to discuss what is the best and most logical way forward from where we are now, which is with this massive, almost done system. The Harbinger's done. We're down to the third expansion and finishing writing it. So it's like we have everything. It's just how do we bring it to you guys in a way that you can wrap your head around it and also afford it.
Affordable,
and, yeah. So I mean, yes, we may do some art tweaks and we might try to go for a little more cohesion and stuff. But I mean, other than that, the darn thing's ready. The minis are all done. We're going through a scaling pass now and making sure they're all the perfect size. So I definitely appreciate your input, Kenneth, for sure.
We appreciate you calling in and making it a call-in show. You understood the assignment.
You are the caller. Thank you, Kenneth.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Kenneth.
I'm glad he called.
Phone
Me
line
too.
is back open.
And Kenneth isn't usually a live watcher. He's one of the one that follows up later, so he must have had a free night tonight.
Yeah, he doesn't call in.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks.
I haven't seen him in a hot minute.
Yeah, he's been around. We got a little bit of time. Somebody wants to sneak one more in. 813-618-7099.
I saw Ron Fraser in the chat.
Ron made a comment, so I'm not sure if he's planning to call in.
He was asking, are we talking RPGs? So
Ron is our one of our big RPG guys.
gurus in the group. And I said, no, we're talking a tabletop gaming system similar to, I hate to say it, similar to like a Hero Quest in the sense that it's going to have a base setup. Like there's a way to play it, but then there's going to be 6 other. Well, speak of the devil.
Here he comes.
Beans and Dice Podcast. State your name. Where are you calling from?
This is Ron Fraser from Atlanta.
Hey,
My
Ron,
man.
how are you?
Thanks for calling, Ron.
We got Jeff from Montana on the line with Weather Vane Games.
It's Ron from Ron Talks Tabletop out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thanks, Ron.
So I just got on your website. I was busy tonight. You guys might imagine, like, I'm not calling. There's probably a good reason.
Yeah, usually you're an early caller, yeah.
Yeah. So, so I jumped on the website and this stuff looks pretty good. I actually immediately signed up for the newsletter.
Oh, good.
Whatever.
Yay!
Well, we prepped Jeff with letting him know that you are an RPG guy, and so Jeff has definitely shared with us that there is some element here of taking this system, and if you want to kind of come up with your own stories, you want to come up with your own RPG type elements, that this system is open to that. So sounds like that might be something that would be up your alley as a frequent DM.
600,000 words written.
Yeah, we're over 600,000 words now, Ron, on campaign and quests that we're writing. Obviously, since we're marketing this as a game system, we're excited to have fans write their own content as well.
Right. It looks, yeah. Well, like I said, the website looks impressive. I'm going to have to dig into this a little bit.
Great.
So interesting.
I can hear him scrolling.
Yeah, you can see him looking at the website. Yeah.
There's a lot to go through, Ron, to be honest with you. And we're all over the place. We're on Facebook, and we got a Discord and Facebook group called the Vrahode Tavern. That's a lot of fun. So
it sounds like you missed most of the show, Ron. Are you going to be at the BGG Con in November?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, I know Ron makes the trip around a lot of the cons, especially here in the southeast or in the that part of the country. But...
Yeah. I won't be getting to anything big for the rest of the year.
Did you go to Dragon?
So
you didn't go to Dragon.
I have not in the past few years, despite the fact that it's basically right down the street.
Yeah.
But I probably will next year. So I'm sorry. Give me the 30-second
Elevator
pitch here.
Oh, on Vrahode?
Yeah.
Basically, it's a game that allows you to play in a brand new fantasy world. We try to avoid tropes, and stuff from fantasy that's been overdone. And the play is divided between ocean exploration, overlands exploration, and dungeons. So it's a crawl. It's got an adventure game kind of feel in the overlands. It's got lots of modes of play. If you like campaign games, it's got a big campaign. If you like quests of varying lengths, we have those from 12 quest chains all the way down to 1. If you like more sandboxy type games where you can kind of just go around the world and do your own thing, we have that type of play in the Vrahode system as well. I would say if we have to try to sum up what Vrahode plays like, it's definitely richer and more complex than Hero Quest. A little Shadows of Brimstone-y, not as heavy or slow as Gloomhaven, but it has kind of a retro feel, kind of like if you remember playing RPGs as a kid. In many ways, it harkens back to that.
Okay.
But some of the things that we talked about during the show, I'll catch you up, Ron. We'll do a end of the show recap. Some of the stuff that we learned about it is it's not going to use any of the old classic fantasy tropes. You're not going to get your Tolkien-esque monsters or heroes. It's going to be a whole new world to explore. So we shared how that levels the playing field for gamers like Ron, who have been living in fantasy world since a child, and gamers like Rob, who are just joining into it, because both you're going to go in eyes wide open, like, whoa, where are we and what is this and what was that attacked us? So that to me sounds really interesting. Rob, anything that interested you that you want to share, Ron?
Well, that's a big part of it, and I like the idea that there are pre-built characters. You can come in with characters. There's potentially with the expansions up to 12 different classes, and I understand male and female versions of both. Correct?
There's actually 18 hero archetypes. There's 12 in the core box, and you get 6 new ones in expansion 2, and
Gotcha.
Each one has a male and female version, except for the Chorn, which are not male or female.
Okay.
And then we have a completely female-dominated society called the Greenling, and you don't get to play a male because they're all just slaves anyway.
Okay. Gotcha.
Game over.
I like the idea that you can come in with pre-built characters. They give you some pre-stats, or you can have a certain percentage of those points to distribute how you like. You've got a base. You've got caps on how high you can level some of the things, so that somebody like Carlos said can't just go heavy
min-maxing.
Max on one stat, and then build another character that's max on another stat, and just try to play off of those two. So there's definitely some rules and some ways to go about it. Yeah, the character.
Oh, the dashboard.
The dashboard. I was just
is
saying,
amazing.
Yeah, is really nice. That's going to be a nice component of it. So everything slots in. You got, it looks like cubes. I'm a big fan of cubes. Cubes on there for your to set your stats. I know I'm getting excited, but to set your stats. So I mean, I will tell you, Hero Quest is one that I had never played as a kid, and Carlos introduced it to me just a couple of years ago. He picked it up and we played it one time. He was all giddy and excited, and he was dying for me to play it. I played it, and it was flat for me. I really did not like it. It was too simple. It was just going in and smashing stuff. So I I like the fact that Jeff has said that this is definitely it's got some feels of the Hero Quest, but it's got some more complexity to it. It's not Gloomhaven, and I am a lover of the Gloomhaven Frosthaven, but if it's somewhere in the middle,
Right.
I can definitely live with that. I can enjoy that it's going to be a little snappier, that it's going to move along. You're going to do some. It sounds like a lot of I don't know if exploration, but a lot of world building, a lot of exploring. So all of that appeals to me for sure.
I'll show him the deck of cards.
Oh yeah, you got the deck candy again. Yeah, the
Oh,
box of
this
cards.
is like
it's more than a deck. This is
If you're a backer of our core box, this is the 23 card decks that comes in the core box.
There's exploration decks for Overland, exploration decks for
Dungeons.
the Underlands.
Underland.
Nations.
Yep. Yeah. So pretty robust system. We welcome you in to write your own quests and chains, and even obviously we give you lots of opportunities to create custom hero builds, which is more of a role playing thing, than to have something preset for you. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So sounds like there's some similarities to Gloomhaven, except it's a little bit more streamlined and more customizable.
For sure, it sounds like it.
Think, you're way more customizable. Like in a lot of games, especially that are RPG like, they want to keep you in a class. They want to keep you, if you're a warrior, they want to keep you a warrior. In Vrahode, we start you out with some skills, but then we want you to become more of a Swiss Army knife so that you've got healing skills and you've got distance direct damage, you've got area of effect, you got crowd control. You're becoming more diverse as a hero.
Right. Neat. It sounds really cool.
Well, I'd love to hear from you on the in the Vrahode Tavern, or on the Discord, or anywhere you choose to interact with us. We would welcome it.
Sounds good. I'm going to be digging into this a little bit more, for sure.
And if you'd like me to send anybody want me to send you any of the documents that we have in decent shape, like I think we've got a setup and rule guide now that's you can get a good idea of the rules. We have the Vrahode Visitors Guide that's done in a PDF. I can send you that, and that's kind of fun to look at too, so you can see all the game modes and difficulty levels of the game.
Yeah, Ron is our resident RPG expert. He's got his show, Ron Talks Tabletop, on YouTube. He's on the Instagram, and you can find him regularly on the Dice Tower.
Ron
Tabletop.
Ron Tabletop. Yep, Ron Frazier.
But we brought him over to the Bean side.
Yeah.
He's called in one time. Next thing you know, he's a BFF. We're meeting up.
He was hooked. Yeah,
he's come down to Florida and hung out here in our game studio. We played games together here out of Rim. We've come to.
Oh yeah, Ron's a big
Ron taught us the expansion here in the studio here in Tampa when he brought his family down.
Got to do the expansion.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
What do you got for the folks at home, Ron? You're closing out the show tonight.
So the reason why I got on so late is I was playing a game in the online league I signed up for Super Show, because I'm fully into this game now.
Sounds like it.
I want to see you dressed up.
Yeah, with the
Super Show is a wrestling game, by the way, Jeff. It's a wrestling themed card game.
Yeah,
Fun.
Think of like WWF, not WWE.
Yeah.
Think WWF, like old school wrestling.
So I won tonight, which was different.
Nice.
Because I'm brand new. But I had a whole lot of fun. The guy I played against was really helpful. Gave me some tips. And yeah, like, I never thought I'd get into a TCG, but I don't count like Marvel Champions because that's an LCG and it's cooperative.
That's
and all
different.
That kind of stuff. But I'm having a lot of fun with this so far, and we'll see what else going on. But next weekend here in Atlanta, there's Atlanta Game Fest, which is 4 days straight of open gaming.
Nice.
So I'll be getting a lot of games in, hopefully get some new games. I think Frenchie's going.
Oh, Frenchie.
His
Did he move out to
Yeah.
the East Coast?
He's on the other side of town.
He was Colorado, wasn't
But
he?
he
When we
is-
first met him, he was Colorado.
Yep. Yeah, but now he's here in Atlanta on the in the Southwest metro area. We met up a couple of times, but yeah, it should be a good time. It's a small
You
group.
said that's next weekend?
Yeah, that's next weekend, same weekend as Sobo, which is why I'm not going to Sobo.
Yeah, I
Well-
was going to say, we got to get you out to Sobo because a week from today I'll be in New Orleans.
Southern Board Game
So
Fest in
Southern
New
Board Game
Orleans.
Festival,
Rob's
yeah.
headed to that. I'm headed to Atlanta, though.
Yeah,
I'll
you
be in
going to
Atlanta next
Yeah,
weekend.
That's right.
But I'm going to be there
Car
for
race.
Petit Le Mans.
Yeah.
I'm going to go watch cars race for 10 hours.
Wow, that sounds fun.
Yeah, my middle boy loves it. So I'm like, I committed to going. We were going to go do it. So we're going to skip the gaming but I am going to bring heat, pedal to the metal. We're going to play heat, pedal to the metal, on the hill at Petit Le Mans. We're going to get pictures of that. So board games themed to where you are.
Very cool.
Because of course you are.
Of course he is. That's
And
his
of
thing.
course, I
That's
got to
his
hit the
thing.
varsity. I got to get my chili dog with my orange drink.
What do you want?
What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? What do you have?
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you, Ron, for making it a multi-call-in show
Yay,
tonight. We really
$2.
appreciate you.
Woo. Everybody waited to the last minute. Yep, Nick was in the chat, said he
Yeah,
had
the
a
chat
late
blew
night
up at the
tonight, so
end.
yeah, he said he
Everybody
couldn't
was
call in
busy.
'cause he was busy tonight. So anyway, yeah. We appreciate you, Ron. We will talk to you again soon, and you'll have to let us know how the gaming goes.
All right, will do.
Have a good night, Ron.
Good night. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care. All right,
Thanks.
take care.
All right. That would have been the last caller of the show. Yeah, we made it a call-in show. We also made it international. Our buddy in the chat, Edmund England, popped in.
Yep.
He's out of Sweden.
Sweden. Yep.
So whenever Edmund pops in, we know we've gone international.
Yep,
so
he's waking up this morning. Yeah.
you can now say, Jeff, you've been on an internationally viewed show.
There you go.
Oh,
If you haven't had that honor before,
Oh.
but yeah.
no, I haven't.
Well, yeah.
And-
I'm going to say, as the project progresses, as we know it will, certainly we leave the door open if you'd like to come back on and update us in a couple of months, 5 months, 6 months, and let us know where the whole project stands at that point. Obviously, hopefully, as you'll be getting into a Kickstarter at some point here or some launching of the game, whatever platform it is, we'd love to have you back on to promote it at that point.
Great. No, I think, like I said, I gave all the marketing teams a week off because I wanted this decision to be deliberate. So we should have some news fairly soon.
Oh, good, good.
All right. Vrahode.
Vrahode?
Vrahode.
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 Think of it as
There's a V in there.
I'll eventually get it. .com is the website. VRAHODE.com is the website where you get all the details to follow along. Be like Ron Frazier. Click on the newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
That way you can keep up.
Sign up.
Big help.
Find him on the Discord as well. Jeff, it's been a pleasure having you. We want to thank you for reaching out. And at this point, folks at home, you know what to do. Tell your friends about what we're doing here at Beans and Dice. We take your calls every week to talk about what you want to talk about. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast version of it. I post the replay of the show so you can listen to it anywhere. If you're not watching live, you can catch up. So, Ron, you want to listen to it tomorrow, listen to the replay. It'll be up there. But we also, every week, our buddy Mitchell
Wayne
and our
Mitchell.
buddy Wayne
Yep.
pop in with their own podcast that we put on there. So make sure you check out your subscribing service of your choice and get the podcast.
For sure. Good stuff going on there.
I'm Carlos.
I'm Rob.
And that's Jeff out in what was beautiful Montana for a while there to the sunset.
It's it's
Those
getting dark
mountains
there.
behind you was gorgeous, man. You got to be living the dream.
Nice.
Thank you,
folks, for watching.
We appreciate it. Thanks
Thanks,
for being
Jeff.
on.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice podcast. Don't forget to like and
Hold on.
subscribe.